Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Buddy Study Group. And today we are going to talk a little bit about resources. Um, I don't think I need to um, overstate why resources are important, but as a long-term care specialist, generally, the expectation of us is that we are up to date on everything there is to do with the long-term care industry, and even industries that are tangential to long-term care. And that can, really take a number of different forms, right? So we're talking about resources being important because we can be, among the first to know if anything changes that affects our clients. We can be, aware of maybe what public sentiment is regarding the long-term care market nowadays. We can be up to date on caregiving. We can be up to date on common long-term care conditions, right? And the medical science behind that. We can find solutions to help clients that may be in a very tough spot, right? I think all of these things come together to provide value in a number of ways, right? So being able to help a client just in time, at the right time, at the first possible opportunity, but also being armed with specific talking points to match specific situations that you are in. So I want to give a little bit of education on what resources are out there, what resources we use, what resources have been recommended to me by others, what resources that people in our own community have available to help you become a better long-term care specialist each and every day. And then I would really like to hear from you guys. So if there is a resource in particular you use a lot for a specific topic, or any sort of specific long-term care purpose, I would love to know about it, and I'm sure everybody else would too. So as we get started, I'm uh, in my notes, I really created a few major categories for each resource, and I'll give a little bit of a primer to them. So number one, it's pretty simple, long-term care product knowledge and information, right? So as anything changes in the world of products and carriers, these resources help keep us up to speed. They help keep us in the know, and they really help us to generate opportunities for outreach, right? Because if there is a change with a specific carrier that affects a client, maybe there was an underwriting change with a carrier and they can now accept a client that they wouldn't previously. Or let's say age minimums drop or increase for a carrier. That's a new opportunity. I think that is really one of the most important things that this category can be used for is it generates outreach opportunities, which can really generate cases and generate revenue. But also, there are organizations that really keep track of the data itself, the sales data of long-term care, so you can get an idea of where markets may be shifting or which carriers are seeing a lot of innate demand, right? And it's not necessarily that we want to always go for the carrier that has the most demand, but it really gets us thinking why. Or if there is, a product that we are not using, that we see a lot of demand for, trying to understand why, or at least keeping in your mind, okay, I have to keep this product in mind when I'm working with clients is really, really important. So there are a few resources here that I really like. Number one is for hybrid LTCI. You are going to see her coming up on an upcoming study group she was on the study group last year, but I think Ramona Neal's website and platform, Living Benefit Review, is one of the easiest recommendations I could really give for learning about the hybrid market. And beyond just having access to Ramona, who is fantastic and keeps us up to date ad hoc on changes in the hybrid market, her website has, um, though it is membership required, there is a subscription. She does an unbelievable amount of benchmarking on hybrid long-term care products. If you remember on the study group last year, she gave a wonderful session on understanding the difference between chronic illness and true life with long-term care or true life hybrid products. And I thought that was an extremely valuable discussion to let us know what to look out for and to allow us to keep in mind that we need to know what we're selling, right? But I think one characteristic of the hybrid market is the products look very, very similar, and it's down really to price and benefit differentiators at the end of the day. And I think Ramona's benchmarking really helps to do that. So I wanted to give a shout out to Living Benefit Review. And it's nice, I think, to pull from resources that are very specialized in nature. If somebody focuses on a, you know, one sector of the market, I think that person develops a greater expertise and gives greater value because their scope tends to be limited. So I wanted to shout that out, and we'll have Ramona on another upcoming study group again to talk about the hybrid market, but surveying a bit of what's new out there in the market. I think that NAIFA has a pretty nice um, page up for their limited and extended care planning collective, is what they call it. And to share this, um, I think they give a lot of really nice long-term care market focused articles, be it around things like underwriting. You can see some of the titles here, why I recommended that someone let their long-term care policy lapse. A bit controversial, but could be a good read. Helping folks to plan for extended care. I think there's just a lot of really high quality industry pointed articles to read here. Not going to speak so much to carriers, but larger product and industry insights to gain here. So I think NAIFA has a pretty nice back end there. I know many folks have gotten a lot of their learnings over the years from AALTCI. I don't know how many folks are still um, you know, plugged into newsletters or things like that from them, but they've always done a pretty decent job. The Trade Association for Long-Term Care Insurance Professionals, of course. They're going to publish things like annual sales data, claim stats, um, you know, tax deduction limits when they come out, and they do a bit of benchmarking as well. So that's always been a good resource to me. Mark, any on the product side? Well, first, before I ask you, number one, the best way to get the most up-to-date product information and the most accurate product information available is plugging into as many carrier newsletters as possible. So, for any carriers that you work with, if you're not plugged into their newsletter, you should be, because things can change quite a bit between the carriers, and it's always good to be notified of a change up to the minute. But Mark, any on the product knowledge side that you find you use a lot?
Yes, but let me go back one step because you had mentioned NAIFA, ALTCI. One thing I want everyone to be aware of is that um, ALTCI's Medicare conference became Medicarians, and we've been affiliated and a sponsor for that. The same folks that created Medicarians are starting a new conference in the fall in partnership with NAFA. Small world, right?
Yep.
That's called Protectors. I put a link in the chat. You can click on, check it out. It's going to be the first time they're offering this conference, but I'm sure they're going to have a lot of attendees because they've always been very good at providing a really good format for that, making it really agent friendly to attend at low cost. Buddy's also going to be a sponsor for Protectors. And the very first day of Protectors, there's going to be, I think, like an LTC day. So maybe like 6 sessions in a row, all on long-term care. We're involved in helping coordinate and find speakers. So if you'd like to be a speaker, an attendee, that's definitely going to be a good summit to attend. It's in Las Vegas, and the dates are on the website in November. But low cost and LTC focused sessions. So I do want to give a shout out because we know that's coming too.
100%. And this one came recommended to me by our friend Phyllis Shelton. She'll show up later in this presentation as well. But the Center for Long-Term Care Reform. Now, I will say, when you look at the website, it will take you back to Windows 98. Okay, but I think oftentimes the highest quality information can be found here. Uh, just because I think their focus is on keeping everybody up to date. So this is a free resource. We're trying to, wherever possible, recommend free resources, but they have loads of different articles, speeches, newsletters. Their newsletter is something that Phyllis, swears by, digging into whenever there's a new newsletter out, always provides really good information. And when she shares information with her team, many times I'll see it coming from the Center for Long-Term Care Reform. So centerltc.com. It will speak to a lot of the things that many people aren't speaking about as well, like Medicaid planning, things that you hope you don't have to use for clients, but you really need to know your stuff if you do. And these two have always been advocates for a better long-term care market. So I think you're going to see quite a wide array of information from Steve and Damon here. So thank you to Phyllis for that recommendation. Mark, are you plugged into the Society of Actuaries newsletter?
Mm, Used to be, not as much anymore. Anything interesting going on there?
Not much, but as I was doing some initial research, I just did a web survey, and that was one of the things that popped up. And another thing
Ah,
that popped up with that everybody knows really well is ILTCI. And um, I
mhm.
think that is just in general, if you are looking to stay up to speed with the industry and get a lot of face time with individual long-term care carriers to figure out how you get plugged in further and speak to a
Sure.
lot of professionals who are going to keep you plugged in.
Okay.
Conferences are a great resource.
Yeah, let me go back.
Mhm.
So good connection there. Yeah, SOA LTC section is one of the original founders of the ILTCI conference. My dad is on the LTC section council for the SOA. And there is a website where you can get resources on the SOA website, but search specifically for the LTC section council. I don't know if they folded the LTC sections into a different structure now. There may be some change there. So if you have trouble finding it, let me know. But
Okay.
I do think that's a good call out. Sorry, Jason, I didn't mean to say. I just don't have any recent updates that I researched in
Yeah.
the session. That's all.
Um, but generally, you get a pretty unique opportunity to meet with somebody who's built long-term care products before. But as far as actuarial is concerned, we don't get many opportunities to hear from them, and we always want to hear from all sides of the industry and how they view the market and how they view the products. I feel like it's an underrepresented voice, so that's why I thought I'd put it on my final list. Um,
One shout out, I'll give you a couple of others. You
sure.
just going back to product. I know we're jumping back and forth, but I'm trying to close the loop on what you'd asked me earlier.
Yeah.
So one great resource that I think everyone should use more is ChatGPT. We've done a lot of testing of different questions, and it's become a lot smarter over the last 12 months with all the new models that have come out. fairly accurate in terms of the information it's providing. So it's a good one-stop shop to identify where the right resource might be. It also has references, so it'll link you to the Society of Actuaries or to the ILTCI conference website or to the Buddy INS website. I see it linking to Buddy INS a lot. So definitely use AI. And also, I do want to give a shout out to PathWorks AI, which is another, I'll put this in the product category. And I put a link in the chat where you can go to their website and they do have a tool for underwriting pre-qualification with all the main carriers, both the traditional and the hybrid carriers. So we have a few friends that are, in that tech world that are investing in startups to help support our community. And I do think you should check it out and support them as well, especially if you like their software. It's helping you sell more business. So that's one that I know that not everybody in this group has heard about. Some of the top specialists here have started to use it and have great feedback. So I do think you're going to find it to be valuable.
100%. And when I spoke about the Society of Actuaries, I kind of um, mentioned that we want to hear from a lot of different voices in this industry, whether they are directly involved with long-term care insurance or tangentially involved with the long-term care market in general. I think one of the big um, sets of voices that you want to hear from, if you haven't, or you don't have a good source, is elder law attorneys. I think they can be a wealth of knowledge. Of course, they cover a lot of categories, but I think there's a lot of long-term care crossover there as well. I think there's a lot of Medicaid crossover that affects us, and can really provide us with good information. And the law community in general is kind of built around case studies, right? So I think if you have the ability to source from a pool of case studies, which attorneys tend to publish and eat up quite a bit, it's a good idea to have one or two sources for that. So I've got a couple on my list. I have one being elderlawanswers.com. That's kind of the one I have known and have used since the very beginning. And if I was ever working with any clients or I was working with a wealth manager who had a long-term care tangential question or a Medicaid sort of question, um, Elder Law Answers is where I would go generally. To see if there was a case like this before that I could draw from. So they've got a wonderful website. They also can, based on location, connect you to elder law attorneys. So you can actually take a look at profiles of elder law attorneys in the area. And if your client may have a need for one, that's a great way to open a door to somebody who can maybe help to an extra degree with whatever your client is dealing with. But I really like the questions and answers section of their website as well. You can come in here and just read. You can see a lot of this centers around Medicaid and Medicaid planning, right? You can come in here and get a really good idea of just what elder law attorneys do day in and day out that can help you in your everyday helping of clients. So you can see there's 126 Medicaid Q&As, but there are also a few on long-term care insurance that I think are really, really helpful. So I would just give this website a shot, even Social Security, retirement planning, senior living. There's a lot of different topics that they cover that really matter to us, not just in having talking points, but in servicing clients for the long term and really helping them through claims activation, caregiving, things of that nature. And I won't share every single site, but I will say NALA, the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, can be very, very helpful as well as a source. The American Bar Association Commission on Law and Aging is another really good source for you there. The National Center on Law and Elder Rights is another really good one. So those are a few of the sources that I have from that area, but I think that's really good to be plugged into. Um, Buddy INS just so happens to be a pretty good resource as well. We're a resource on resources.
Yeah, I just put it in there because specifically we get questions about payroll tax updates.
Yep.
Trustmark also has a great website. I put a link there as well. They kind of stay up to date on a monthly basis on all kinds of different activities. Mostly they're studies. They're not really legislation per se, but I think anything that starts off with a study means that the state's talking about it, and therefore it's worth bringing up with your clients too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our information sharing strategy and subject matter of what kind of writings we put out and just ideas of what is important to long-term care specialists and clients comes from Phyllis Shelton. And I mentioned her previously. And I've probably showed this website more than a few times. Um, but I think that godltci.com is a wonderful resource on a number of different topics, free to read articles. Um, so you can read into just number one, how are long-term care insurance premiums calculated, benefit selection, getting claims paid. But I think her section on laws and regulations are really good and really detail oriented. If you know Phyllis personally or professionally in any manner, you know that when she really needs a solid answer on something, she will kind of stop at nothing and go as deep as she needs to come up with the answer, and generally she will share that far and wide. So I think she has a great article here for updates on long-term care insurance tax deductions, Medicare, Medicaid, HSAs. I think this tool here, what your state lets you keep, which is updated every single year, is fantastic because it goes through state by state. What is your asset allowance? What is your spouse's minimum asset allowance and personal monthly needs now allowances state by state when it comes to Medicaid planning. So I've used this myself more than a few times to go through and just assess based on who I'm talking to, what is the Medicaid situation going to look like in their state, even when I am speaking to groups on webinars and the topic of Medicaid comes up. This can be a great item to review. Tax incentives. This is also a really, really nice section, especially if you are somebody who is trying to keep track of long-term care clients in all 50 states and prospects. If you work nationally, this can give you an idea of every single tax credit for long-term care insurance and exactly how they work with citations. Couldn't really ask for more. And there's also a lot on group plans. And she keeps her own collection of resources that she recommends as well. So aging, which is one of our categories, she's got a number of the same resources that I would recommend. Assisted living, caregivers, dental care, elder law. You can see, great minds think alike. Elder law answers right up there at the top. Um, Home health care, Medicare and Medicaid information, nursing homes, and just so much more. So this is someone who obviously has dug into all of the little things that people seem to have trouble answering, and she stopped at nothing till she got this wonderful bank of answers. So even state Medicaid websites. So I highly recommend Phyllis's site, and it helps me quite a bit more than I even realize on a day-to-day basis. So I want to give some attention as well to let's see, to Phyllis's aging section. I think there's actually a lot of overlap. on her site with what I would recommend. So I think aging and aging studies are super, super important because the medical science around aging is changing so fast. And I think a lot of the technology used to support aging is also advancing really fast. I feel like when we go to conferences, there is a new robot out every single year that is designed to help in some way with aging in place, be it companionship, be it, light task work, whatever it may be. Um, so I think it's important to have a number of different aging sources. The Gerontological Society of America, I think, is a very, very good one. So this keeps up to date on anything that is hot in gerontology lately. So you're seeing things like, therapy treatments that can help, older adults cognitively. You're seeing forums on dementia. You are seeing um, gerotherapeutic regulatory pathways, which is also very interesting. But career and learning and news and events are really what you want to focus on in this site as far as getting the good information. Um, the journals will give you some extra information as well, but they tend to be quite information dense. So you'll want a way to kind of source through those quickly. But the Alzheimer's Association is going to be a big one, of course. I think that is probably the most in vogue, uh, aging or illness related study out there on the market, Alzheimer's and dementia. So it's always good to see what the Alzheimer's Association is up to. And I feel like every other day there is this kind of anecdotal article that comes out that says XYZ activities can really help reduce the incidence of dementia, but you can see it backed by the science and with the reasoning and studies applied. So I think that's important. Aginginplace.org is another really, really good one. Um, just a lot of, it's easy for us to throw out things like home modifications in our vernacular when we're speaking to clients, and saying that 99% of people want to age in their home, but how do you actually do that is really what's covered on this website. So it does speak to home modifications. Medical alert systems are another super important item to aging in place. There is just so much that you can look at here as far as equipment and modifications to help aging in place. And special shout out as well to Esther Greenhouse, who was on the study group last year, who talked to us about kind of our built environment and how we actually set up our homes to be able to age in place. I think this is a super important uh, piece of knowledge to have to actually talk about how clients may receive care in the future, because it does require a good bit of preparation to be able to do. And that preparation is best done ahead of time. So I think the more information you have there, the better. And then I had legislative news. We covered a bit of that. Um, Mark, any other resources you would say as far as staying up to date on legislation related to long-term
I
care?
keep jumping around on me. Okay. I was focused on product, now I'm back.
Well, you're already covering things after the fact in the chat, but I think for the folks watching the recording, yeah.
Okay. Um, you know what? Legislation wise, again, I would do the AI search first. There was a recent legislation that came out on using 401k funds where they waived the early withdrawal penalty if you're buying long-term care. So that's, I would say, the latest one that's coming up a little bit more often in conversations, especially in the group market, because we see 401k plans, through employers. I think it's probably not going to lead to much because they're still going to charge taxes, capital gains tax when you withdraw money. out of your 401k, but they are waiving the penalty, which is nice. So at least the marketing and awareness are good there. In terms of other legislations, that Trustmark website and the buddy link that I have above, we'll speak to those more broadly. There's something called the WISH Act that's going on at the federal level. Again, there's a lot of lobbying going on with NAIFA, but it's not clear whether that's getting support, to pass yet as legislation. I think NAIFA did their annual a meeting on the Hill in the last couple of weeks. I'm seeing a lot of pictures on LinkedIn about it. So that's when they're usually kind of planting that seed. But I think for the most part, the biggest thing is still the Washington payroll tax, and they're trying to build like a wraparound program to allow private insurance to complement the public program. So again, yet to be seen exactly what's happening there, but some of the traditional carriers are potentially going to participate in that, and that might lead to some noise there. I have a couple of other things outside of legislation, Jason, real quick
Yeah, go for it.
from the chat. One is don't forget about CLTC, another great website with resources. If you want to screen that, share that, Jason. And that's also where you can get your designation. But if you just go to their website, kind of like Phyllis's website, it's got a lot of useful information that you can share with your clients. Gretchen on the Buddy team put together a fact finder in partnership with CLTC that you'll find on their website as well. Some of it is for the CLTC credential holders themselves, people who have gone through their course, but they have information out there available to the public as well. You see where it says like for the public. So there's a lot of different information there too. And then one other thing, I put in Amada Senior Care, right? Their Buddy INS is officially endorsed LTC claims concierge. So if you want your client to have more of a concierge experience, rather than just going to the carrier directly when they need to get help filing a claim, you can go to Amada Senior Care on this web page, and they'll help your client at no cost, help them file the claim with any carrier, any insurance product that they have. So I would definitely recommend taking advantage of that community resource. Thanks for sharing that. Whether they have insurance or don't have insurance, they're going to also reach out and help them. So if you have a client that says, hey, my parents need help with caregiving, who do you recommend? I would go through that same process and fill out the form there. And happy to connect you, with the leadership team at Amada if you want to get to know them better.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those because I kind of take them as givens, but we shouldn't take among our best and most recommended resources as givens. TCare, I would also say is a fantastic resource if you know somebody who is a caregiver who is struggling in being that direct family caregiver. They have a lot of free ways to interface and at least walk through what solutions there may be. Now, the program itself is not free, but a lot of the solutions that are recommended by TCare are designed or attempted to be free solutions that can help with caregiver burnout or just tips on access to cheaper resources or just ways to kind of close some gaps and provide some relief to family caregivers. So would absolutely agree with that. Anybody else have resources that they would like to recommend that they have found really useful in their day-to-day, be it staying up to date, be it referring a client for direct assistance with something you don't normally cover, anything of the sort. I would love to hear from you if you've got some that you like.
Hey, Jason, while people are thinking, can you also screen share the Buddy portal?
Of course, community partners.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people probably go in there that section as often, but so I just want to highlight what's there. We also have a couple of newer partners you'll see on there. So Aspire Magazine is actually our newest partner. I think we just added them a couple of days ago. That's kind of one of the industry leading magazines now. I think they have close to 1 million agents that subscribe to it, at least the digital version. And Buddy does write articles in the LTC section of that magazine. So that's a new section. And then right below that on the community partners is Twilight Wish, which is kind of our not-for-profit partner. The idea there is that let's say you have a client or somebody knows of someone who is deserving but doesn't have the resources to get help. A lot of times that they can get sponsored by Twilight Wish. It's kind of like Make-A-Wish, but for seniors. So they can, it's not going to provide them with care, but it's going to provide them with some type of lifetime memory that I think is really powerful. And if you do want to be involved with Twilight Wish, there's a way to connect with them too, to become a part of that organization.
Yep. Following the link will take you directly to their website. And I think they're a great cause, and I think the majority of their wishes, though, they have wonderful stories about, maybe reuniting veterans with their brothers in arms or taking somebody to a concert. The majority of wishes that they grant are very simple but effective wishes. Things like new mattresses, hearing aids, things of that nature, things that we would want anybody who is deserving to be able to have access to. So I think whether it's large or small, they do really great work. We mentioned CLTC, but we also have Fairway Mortgage here, who can help to be an expert on reverse mortgage consultations. Won't be the right fit for every single client, of course, but I think having an expert by your side can help you determine if a reverse mortgage may be suitable for a client, be it for long-term care related purposes, funding related purposes, or otherwise. So always good to have them, and they've been a long time community partner of ours. And we did mention TCare, so you can dive into a lot more information about what they do here. They've also been on a study group or two and Amada Senior Care. So thank you for the shout out on the community partners section. And I didn't even realize that we had added Aspire, so it was really good that we stopped in there.
Well, one more thing is go back to that real
Oh,
quick.
yeah.
Products. You asked me earlier about products. I would
Yes.
recommend the individual section of the portal. Um, yeah, either individual solutions or the one that I use a lot is Product Buddy.
Hmm.
I think one thing that I find missing sometimes, from other resources is the breadth of how many different kinds of long-term care solutions are out there. So you
Sure.
see the categories there, but if you want to get
Sorry, I'm jumping around a lot, but I decided I'd just go to Product Buddy first.
yeah, so product resource wise, I would say you can find some information out there. I mentioned ChatGPT can be a good resource, but specifically, I would start here, look at what type of product is a fit, especially for products you may not be as familiar with, like the short-term care or the annuity long-term care. It's going to tell you, A, why it may be a fit. In that bottom right corner, you have that one-page PDF you can download, but also it tells you kind of like that, leading carriers that are in that segment. So when you want to research it, you can be specific and say, I'm looking for long-term care, not short-term care, right? And therefore, when you're actually doing the search for information, obviously you have some of that inside of our portal, but that will help you be more fine-tuned in what you can find, through ChatGPT and other resources too.
100%. Individual solutions, contain not only the resources we have when it comes to long-term care products, be it traditional, hybrid, annuity, short-term care. This is kind of when you get that one pager for Product Buddy, or you go through Product Buddy and kind of understand where the fits may be, you can dive deeper into these carriers to get a little bit more info around the product sweet spots, how to quote and apply with each of these carriers. And we keep these little highlight cards in here that really kind of speak to where they're competitive, what states they're unavailable in, and much, much more. So uh, definitely give those a shot. But also up at the top here, I have the underwriting buddy document. I know many of you have used it over the years, just for quick sort of underwriting reference at a glance. But I love this international benefits PDF as well. So this was Phil Shelton and Linda Thalheimer putting together, and I will share this, putting together through each of the carriers that offer international benefits, how exactly they work. So uh, it goes one by one, and there is just a dense amount of information in here uh, because international benefits can be tough to peg down. Carriers will talk about it in things like brochures and flyers and promotional materials, but if you kind of press to go further, there are a lot of things that are generally kind of left unanswered in those promotional materials. So I really, really like this because it is a deep dive on each carrier and how they treat international benefits. Like, you dig um, a little bit deeper and you see like some international benefits are for facility only. Some international benefits don't apply to amounts increased by inflation protection. Some are going to give you um, the full total benefit, but your access amount per month is cut in half. So to come in here and get any answer on any specific carrier is really, really helpful.
You never know when you're going to run into a client from the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, because I didn't know that that was a U.S. territory. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm telling you, Phyllis does not stop until she gets the exact answer she needs. And if she needs to speak to the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands or somebody will need to know about it, it's going to get written down. So, yeah, I think what we have tried to do as a company since the very beginning is really to allow for the community to lift each other up in a number of ways, not just by um, selling long-term care policies, but to really help everybody become better agents and collectivize their knowledge. So we appreciate everybody who has contributed in some way, shape, or form to the resources we have. And we always want to share good resources that are outside of what we do with you whenever we can, because we never know when we're going to need them one day or another. So I like to break them down into categories and just name a few sources so you'll always know, where to turn when you have a question that you don't normally have to answer every single day. Anybody have any other sources that they enjoy, any questions, any comments, anything else they think would be useful for the folks on the call? Otherwise, I think we're right about at time and we can wrap up and get you out of here. All right, I rest my case. I think that'll do it. Appreciate you all for being here today and just listening in and contributing what you did before the call, during the call. If there are any resources you think of after we get off here, feel free to let me know. Always down to put something together that we can all share. But for now, take care, be well, and we'll see you this time next week. Have a good one.